early 90s, the haulage of coal trains in the Welsh valleys was mainly in the hands of Class 37 diesels. By the mid-90s, much of the coal flows were handled by Class 56s or the newer Class 60s. Aberthaw Power Station has been the main user of South Wales coal during the 1990s. It is located between Cardiff and Bridgend on the Vale of Glamorgan branch of the former Barry Railway. It overlooks the Bristol Channel and uses 1 million litres of seawater each minute for cooling. There are 2 stations at Aberthaw. The original, Aberthaw A, was built in the early 60s and is currently in the process of being decommissioned and demolished. The second station, Aberthaw B, was built in 1971 and is capable of producing 1500 megawatts of electricity. The turbine hall houses 3 turbines which are each capable of generating 670,000 horsepower. Unfortunately, one of the turbines was extensively damaged in September 1996 and is currently still being repaired. Aberthaw B burns about 60,000 tonnes of coal each week. Most of it is supplied by rail. The rail wagons are unloaded automatically as the train moves slowly over gratings in the unloading shed, and the coal is taken by conveyor to the stockpile, which can hold 1.25 million tonnes, or to bunkers inside the station for immediate use. In the early 90s, coal was supplied by rail from the east from a cluster of 4 deep mines near Merthyr, and an open cast disposal point at Cwmbargoed. Coal was also supplied by rail from the west from the drift mine at Blaenant, north of Neath, and a blending centre at Steel Supply at the mouth of the river Neath. A limited amount of coal was also imported through Cardiff Docks and Avonmouth. The main shaft at deep navigation was sunk in 1872 to 79 and was the deepest in South Wales at 2,280 feet. It provided much high-quality steam coal to power the vast steamship fleets of the world. Its coal was still used by the Great Western Society and the Canal Steamboat President until the colliery closed in Easter 1991. The Great Western Society had wooden wagons that were taken to deep navigation by the Speedlink service for loading. Taff Merthyr Colliery was a joint venture between Powell Dufferin and the Ocean Coal Companies, and the sinking of the shafts commenced in 1922 and was completed in 1924 to a depth of 1,758 feet. The first coal was produced immediately after the general strike of 1926. The final shift was worked on June the 11th, 1993. It was connected to the GWR Pontypool to Neath line by a 1-mile single-track line. The coal produced in the latter years from Taff Merthyr had a high level of shale. A train was dedicated to taking it to the disposal point about 3 miles away at Nelson Bog, where it was loaded on dumper trucks for depositing in the spoil heaps of Penalta Colliery. An empty MGR train heading for deep navigation passes a shale train unloading at Nelson Bog. It has an interesting effect on the camera and the steel rail. Penalta Colliery was built on the hillside of a small and narrow valley between 1906 and 1909. It was closed in 1992, however its pit head and engine room are protected. As the wagons are loaded, samples are taken and deposited in a pile for later analysis by British Coal and Aberthaw power station.
Loaded? No.
The engine, after pulling out the colliery siding, is uncoupled and runs around its train. The train rejoins the main line from Rumney to Cardiff at Ystrad North. Cumbargo at Washery is situated on the steeply graded Taff Merthyr joint railway of the GWR and Rumney Railway that was opened in 1876. Its coal is supplied from the open car sites in the hills above Merthyr. The distinctive whine of wheel creep can be heard as this Class 60 fights for traction. Coal is currently brought from West Wales to Cumbargo by train. This coal is then blended with Cumbargo coal to sweeten it for burning at Aberthaw. A new traffic flow in 1997 was stone traffic. Here an empty stone train is arriving at Cumbargoed in the early morning. Since this was the first use of these wagons, one is taken to the weighbridge at the loading point to check that it is not overweight. Until 1993, single class 37s were used. And then double-headed 37s were used. And finally, triple-headed 37s were used. Where the lines from the collieries join the main line at Ustrop there is an unusual Rumney Railway signal box. Tower Colliery was redeveloped in the 1930s from earlier 19th century workings. Coal is not brought to the surface at the pithead, but by an inclined plane driven in 1958-59. Tower is the last deep mine in the Welsh valleys and is now owned by its own miners. There was an intensive service of MGR trains before it was closed and privatised in 1994. Currently, coal for Aberthaw is taken by road to Cwmgrach and then by rail. However, the trains from Tower started to run again in December 1997 as bag coal to Newquay and a trial MGR train to Aberthaw. Blaenite was an anthracite drift mine that shared many of its facilities with the Cefn Colliery. Although this colliery closed in 1968, it has become a museum and its winding gear is well preserved. The entrance to the drift mine was via the bridge over the railway. Coal loading was from an overhead bunker. The ground frame was very small. Unfortunately, the coal trains were scheduled to run only at night. However, the signalman explains the procedure.
The Bragan phones up and tells me that the code of the train, whatever the code may be, this, you know, it's all with a 6 on the up, and all with a 7 on the down.
Yeah.
So he tells me he got the 6 C88, leaving the Neatham Bragan, gives me the time which I enter in the book. When he gets to the number 8 ground disc, which I pull off, he comes into the loop, where he changes tokens with me, where he gives me the ticket and I give him the token. That sends him out into the on-flying section. He goes past number 7 signal into the on-flying section. The shunter then alights from the diesel at the points going back into the merry-go-round loop. He then unclips the points after the train is pulled around clear. Then there are a system of lights that call the actual train back. It's propelled into the merry-go-round loop. The first 4 are loaded under the hopper and then pushed through. Then the engine runs round, he comes back out, the points are clipped, and he runs down as far as the signal box again, where the points are unclipped again, turning him back into the merry-go-round loop. Then he loads down with a system of lights with a 2 for stop, 4 for ahead, and 6 to set back. And he continues that system until the train is actually, finished loading. This one is specially made, so you insert the ticket in there.
Yes.
So that the ticket doesn't fall out. It's as simple as that. And the other one, of course, the token fits into the holder.
Right.
And you just turn the key and hold it in.
Right.
And that's the system there.
Steel Supply was the blending centre for coal to be sent to Aberthaw by MGR train. Coal arrived by train from various open cast mines. Since it was situated on a wharf, it could receive coal by sea. However, the main other source of coal was by road. They also had an interesting method of moving wagons. When the railway lines from the Neath valleys were built, it was expected that the traffic would be to Swansea. There was therefore no direct route to Aberthaw, and the trains had to reverse at Jersey Marine sidings. The wagons were examined for defects in the sidings. With this train, 2 wagons have failed and have to be cut out of the train. By 1997, Blaenant and Steel Supply had closed and had been replaced by open car sites at Oncloyne, Cwm Grac and Park Slip. Oncloyne is an open cast mine whose rail connection is off the former Neath and Brecon Railway. The current internal locomotive at Oncloyne is an EWS 08. The level crossing is almost exactly on the site of the entrance to Blaenant Colliery. The other line at Neath and Brecon Junction is the remains of the Vale of Neath line. This now goes to the disposal point at Cwmgrach. The train to Cwmgrach picks up the token at the Neath and Brecon Junction signal box.